TCI is brought to you by Spendthrift Stallion Liaison, a Grade 1 winning juvenile by Indian Charlie, available through Spendthrift's Breed Secure program in 2015.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. Joel, we have two major races that we need to recap. It was the first of the 50-point series, and let's talk about the Fountain of Youth first. You know, this race was pretty surprising to me. We kind of thought that you had Upstart and Frosted. It was going to be a rematch in there. And I got to be honest, in the stretch of this race, it was kind of disappointing.
It really was, and I tell you, the key disappointment for me, and I think for everybody, was Frosted. You know, here's a horse that finally put blinkers on, gave him a tactical advantage over Upstart here, and frankly, down the backstretch, I felt that it was going to be Frosted's day. I mean, for him to have that sort of tactical advantage, you know, he's a horse that doesn't have a big explosive move. I think certainly Upstart has usually more tactical speed and more of an explosive move. So anytime Frosted is trying to run him down at a middle distance, I think it's a difficult thing for that horse to do. But we talked about his upside. Felt like he would develop, you know, and with blinkers on, the way he was working, we thought we'd see a good race. We'll go now to the race replay here. And Frosted, turning for home, I'm thinking, John, what's he going to win by here? And where's he going to rank himself as a Derby contender? And boom, within a split second, we saw the opposite effect. His head went in the air, up and down, bad strides late, and you saw two horses that were, frankly, scrubbing on the turn to keep up with Frosted. And it looked like, you know, Frosted's jockey had all kinds of horse. Yeah. Well, they go by him. You see the foul there in the stretch, but you see your Holy Bull winner, I think, proven to be the best horse in the race. He certainly got a better buyer, finishing ahead, but It's a Knockout gets put up for Todd Pletcher, remains undefeated, gets a 90 buyer that's very light for the Fountain of Youth, which is usually a very prestigious prep race. So you can't walk away very impressed. They came home very slow in the race after Frosted fell apart. So a disappointing performance, and now we'll have to see going forward in the Florida Derby who shows up in there. You know, we know Kozan's going. Daredevil, will he go?
Yeah, we're going to find that out this weekend. But let's take a look at the Risen Star as well. You know, for being such an exciting weekend, and you're kind of looking at these races like, okay, now it's getting real. It's 50 points. It's really going to, you know, these horses are really going to shine. I don't know. The Risen Star just didn't really have the fireworks for me either. I think International Star, let's give that jockey some credit and the horse some credit. I mean, you want to talk about a narrow opening. He really made a pretty aggressive move.
Well, he's a horse that's having a great winter at Fairgrounds. I mean, you know, much like Upstart finishing ahead in both the Holy Bull and the Fountain of Youth, I mean, you can't really knock International Star. The fact that he won the LeCompte from off the pace, now came back and won the Risen Star. The problem is, John, you know, the races seem pretty slow from a class standpoint. You don't see a lot of quality in these races yet. I mean, we thought we'd get Texas Red in the Risen Star. Obviously, the foot injury put him on the sidelines, and after the Southwest Stakes had the weather issues there, you saw Tom Amos Spring War Story, who ran a pretty good race, in my opinion. Let's look at the stretch run now, the Risen Star, and sort of break it down here. And we'll see War Story have to go around, and instead we'll see Ken and Sarah Ramsey's horse, International Star, get that ground-saving trip, and like you talked about, shooting up the rail here. And I think that was probably the difference in the race, even though now he's beaten War Story in back-to-back races here. A horse that obviously has a style and a pedigree to go on, so he'll be a factor in the Louisiana Derby. But I do question the quality and how good this race was. You know, Imperia, horse that's not even in the screen right now, very disappointing. For Mike Smith to range him up, good finishing rider, and this horse to have no response. And to me, his action looked terrible over the main track. Again, you have to question whether or not he's a turf horse going forward. You know, if he can't carry his dirt track along with him and can only run at certain tracks like Churchill, he probably won't even get the points to run in the Derby. So very disappointing, and we sort of realized our fears about Imperia, but what a bad weekend for Godolphin now, with Imperia and Frosted both running terribly. And that's going to impact our TCI Top 10.
Well, we promised the viewers that, I mean, there was going to be some shakeup this weekend. You know, you start getting into these tougher races. You promised them there would be a new TCI Top 10. So we got you a new screen, man. Why don't you show the viewers?
I like it. And, hey, this is my first major tweak, John, of the TCI Top 10. So let's go down through it. We have not changed this up. You know, again, we made our initial evaluations on the 10 horses that we really liked and launched that over a month ago. This is the first major tweak now that we've seen the Fountain of Youth, the Risen Star. We've also had some injury impact. So we go at the top. Carpe Diem, he's going to remain number one for me. American Pharaoh, again, training unbelievably for Bob Baffert. You're going to see him in the Rebel Stakes next time out. You're probably going to see him on the Arkansas Derby path. To me, his talent, even though I worry about how far he's going to go, he's going to move in the 2 spot. Dortmund, the second string colt for Baffert, a horse that I think is going to go further than American Pharaoh. To me, he moves in the number 3 spot. Texas Red, I had to drop him from 2 to 4 based on that foot injury. Daredevil, a horse that runs this weekend in the Swell. I know they're bringing him back sprinting around one turn, but if he wins this race, to me, he's a horse that could go into the Florida Derby be a wire-to-wire candidate there to maybe beat Kozan. A lot of talent with Daredevil. He's moving up to the 5 spot. I mentioned Kozan. You know, the allowance win, I think you had to be impressed. You know, he was bumped out of the starting gate. Horse that didn't have a lot of experience, had to make a middle move in there, but still handled his business by the buyer. It only got a 90 buyer speed figure. But we saw that debut win out of the 14 hole, 103 buyer, half the Delta Prince. I mean, obviously a ton of stamina there. Will improve around 2 turns, so he's a factor. Far From Hover, again, another progressive colt. I think his Derby profile is substantial, so I move him into the 7 spot. Firing Line, a horse that I need to see something from next time out when he runs in the San Felipe Stakes, where he'll probably be the favorite. He's in the 8 spot, moves up 1 for me. And Upstart, he falls for me based on the fact that, again, he's won back-to-back races, or he's finished first in back-to-back races, even though he was taking down the Fountain of Youth Stakes. I just don't know if he's going the right direction. I really question, again, if he's going to hold up and be that same caliber horse come the first Saturday in May after a tough campaign, and is he going to like a classic distance? So Upstart has to prove something to me going forward in the Florida Derby. Then Ocean Knight, your Sam Davis winner, he's going to remain in the 10th spot.
Well, I see there, JC, I see Frosted Imperia, you know, is obviously off, but it's still early enough that a horse that can kind of jump on the scene. There's a horse at Turfway that you think might be interesting this weekend.
Well, it's the Great War. I mean, there are really no big Derby preps this weekend, John, but, you know, you do have the John Battaglia Stakes, which is the local prep at Turfway on the poly track for that Spiral Stakes. You'll see a lot of these horses, if they're successful, maybe go on, you know, particularly the Great War, the Wesley Ward, you know they're probably targeting the Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland. That's where he likes to go in the springtime. So the Great War, break from the outside. He's a horse that's very tactical, very quick. I expect him to be very tough in here. You know, he's going back in 1 16th. His Breeders' Cup Juvenile, I thought, was pretty impressive, considering first time on the dirt, facing a very good group of horses at Santa Anita over a tight dirt track. He was able to stalk a pretty fast pace, and when it melted down, he hung around there. It was really a good, even performance for him to finish, you know, fourth that day, only beating 8 lengths after being right behind that fast pace. So the Great War, be interested to see how far he can go, though. You know, I look at that pedigree, I look at his build. He's typical of a lot of the Danzigs. He's a short-made, stocky type horse. Not sure how far he's going to go, but I think he ought to beat this group and move on to the Battaglia, or move on to the Spiral. Then we'll really learn more about it.
All right, thank you, JC. Yep. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know what you think of the TCI Top 10. Let me know if you think JC's right. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week.